to the hearing regarding the renewal of the Enterprise Charter School. This is one of the Buffalo Public Schools charter schools. For those of you who are not familiar with the various methods or various ways in which a charter school can come into existence, both Charter and Westminster were chartered by the district many years ago. Just letting those know, for putting that information out there for those who may be watching that are may not be familiar with that. I know it sometimes comes as a shock to people when we tell them that. At this point, I'm just going to do the introductions. Normally, I turn it over to Ms. Bullock or Dr. Chisholm to kind of set up the meeting, and then we'll turn it back over to Enterprise if that's acceptable to everyone. All right. Lorenda or Ebony, if one of you two would like to speak a little bit about this, and then we'll have the people from Enterprise speak.
I apologize. I came in late, Lou. Dr. Brownhall, do we have enough board members?
A quorum for board.
We don't need a quorum.
Okay, thank you.
Right, but we do have Mr. Scott on, President Belton Cotman, Vice President Mr. Petrucci, and we have you, Mr. Hurt, so we are good to go. I do ask everyone that you please remain muted unless you're called on. If someone joins by phone, please mute your phone. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, esteemed board members and esteemed educator leader colleagues. This is the public hearing for the renewal process for Enterprise Charter School. This hearing comes after site visits, curriculum audits, focus group interviews performed by the district, and then we compile a report. And so this is the opportunity for the school to speak on their own behalf. The person from our district and my department that conducted the review is Dr. Lorenda Chisholm. She is on. Also of note is our administrative intern, bless you, Miss Ashley Scott. She's on to help us with scripting of this meeting. She's just going to take some notes. And with that, esteemed board members and Dr. Brownhall, I think we can begin. Julie, are you speaking first?
I am, yes. Could we have control to bring up the PowerPoint?
Mike Lucci, they're able to share their screen, correct?
They can.
There we go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Bullock. As you have mentioned, we are in our renewal presentation for the Buffalo Board of Education on March 3rd, 2021. And I would like to turn it over to our board president, Mr. Michael Donald.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Mike Donlin. I'm the chair of the Board of Trustees at Enterprise Charter School. I hope everybody can hear me all right. I would like to thank President Belton Cotman and the entire Buffalo Board of Education for organizing this hearing in connection with Enterprise's charter renewal application. On behalf of our entire board, I would like to start by recognizing the efforts of Superintendent Julie Schwab and her Enterprise team, as they've done a tremendous job in navigating the ever-changing COVID landscape over the past 12 months. I'm proud to say that Enterprise continues to flourish in these unprecedented times. As you will hear from the other presenters, Enterprise has implemented a strong remote learning program, and our teachers and support staff have continued to keep students at the forefront, both educationally as well as from a social and emotional standpoint. Additionally, our students and our families should also be commended for their hard work and dedication to excellence in education, despite all the challenges brought on by the pandemic. Throughout it all, Enterprise has remained fiscally responsible and our financial condition is sound. We have made tremendous progress over the last few years. However, we recognize that our work is not done, and we are looking forward to building on the foundation that we have built and leveraging our partnerships, which include the Buffalo Public Schools, during our next charter renewal term and beyond. Thank you for your time this afternoon, and I would now like to hand it back over to Superintendent Schwab and her team.
Thank you, Mr. Donlin, for your opening remarks. Enterprise Charter School's mission statement is engaging young minds through projects and partnerships. The 9 key design elements have been the core of the charter since its inception in 2003. They create a responsive framework of instruction and support for student learning. We begin with the constructivist philosophy of learning on one axis and a commitment to professional development on the other. Who are we? We are a school that is grades K through 8, 405 students. 98% of those students are eligible for free and reduced lunch. 94 are within the borders of Buffalo Public School. 6 come from outside Buffalo Public School. 62% of those students are African American, 28% are Hispanic or Latino, 5 are multiracial, 1 is white, and 4 is other. Our doors open at 7 a.m. with before school programming, and students can stay as late as 5:30 with the after school program at no charge. Our school day is 9:15 to 4 p.m. when we are in brick and mortar. How our students enroll. Enrollment is determined by a third-party lottery process. Siblings of existing students are given preference. Families are not required to disclose special education status. Most students come in at kindergarten. Families can apply anytime during the year. Buffalo Public Schools Committee on Special Education determines special education placement and services. The majority of our students come from family and community connections, and we are now beginning to serve students whose parents attended or graduated from Enterprise Charter School. Recruitment locations. Not only do we advertise in large venues, but we also have a grassroots effort at local CAO Head Starts, Bethel Head Starts, and other centers. We also reach out to local colleges with child care centers like Buffalo State and all 3 ECC campuses. Our advertising, I want to click I can't forward my slide, why?
It didn't update.
I'm sorry, we're having a technical difficulty with our slides. I'm sorry, the person who's controlling the slideshows called disconnected. He's just going to reboot.
Okay, thank you, Julie.
I don't know if I need slides to continue. I can continue on. Advertising. We advertise in Western New York Family Magazine, the Challenger, the radio stations, press release to our local papers, Lamar advertising billboards. We've done bus tails on NFTA. We have used Westminster Early Childhood Program Book. We had a targeted mailing this year to low and middle class income zip codes, and we did that all the way across Western New York. And then our newest addition is our outdoor signage post that sits on the corner of Sycamore and Elm. The ECS subgroup populations, and I would like you to see this slide. So I'm going to hold for just a minute and see if we can get that up.
Would you like for me to show the slide? You just have to let me know when to advance, or you want to wait? Oh, there it is. Okay.
Thank you for the offer, Dr. Chisholm. He beat you to it by a second.
That's fine.
ECS subgroup populations. Students with disabilities, we are at 11%, and we recognize that we are at a difference of 12% from the district. English language learners, we are at 5%, we are 13% from the district. Economically disadvantaged, we are at 98%, and we are plus 14 to the district. Our students support team and classroom teachers provide accommodations to 15 students with 504s. 504 services aren't reflected in this table, but are accommodations that the school provides to students that have physical or mental impairments that do not require require specialized instruction under the classification of special ed. Under the guidance of the CSE, we provide services to students with speech and language impairments, learning disabilities, other health impaired, emotional disturbed, and autism. The types of services provided are consultant teacher, indirect consultant services, resource room, and related services. Related services consist of OT, PT, speech, and counseling. We also have 7 students that have health care plans. Our school chose to make the financial investment to place assistive technology of sound field systems in every classroom to support students with attention deficit or auditory processing issues. Sensory integration paths were created and placed in hallways to provide students a needed break. We also have a long-standing relationship with Gateway Longview, providing counseling not only for our students, but family members as well. This service includes wraparound support for the whole family. Our multilingual learners are provided support through an ENL teacher who provides push in and pull out services. Other language that the school supports are Urdu, Arabic, Farsi, and Bengali. We are expanding our efforts in recruiting of subgroups in the next charter term into certain neighborhoods and working with long-established partnerships with community organizations within the refugee populations, Journey's End, Viva La Casa, and International Institute in order to diversify the application screen. We've also joined Schoolment with the other charter schools and are hoping that that will assist us in diversifying our population of students even more. Where ECS fits in the district. Enterprise Charter School is not statistically different from the similar Buffalo Public Schools with regards to ESA targeted subgroups and enrollments. If you look to the far left, the schools to the left are your specialty schools, like the Occupational Training Center or the Newcomer Academy at Lafayette. To the far right are schools like Olmsted, Tapestry, and City Honors. We sit pretty much directly within the middle of that plot line in relationship to other schools in Buffalo. Comparable schools, remember this is the slide that we compare schools dictated by the New York State Charter Association. Those schools are Hamlin Park, Lovejoy, Harvey Austin School, Dr. Lydia T. Wright School, and Highgate Heights. We sit pretty much directly within the middle of those. We're in the cluster of those, and if you take a look, the statistical relevance of we're off by a 0-point margin. So in relationship, we are very similar, and Buffalo Public School as a whole sits kind of right in the middle of all of us. Our 2019-2020 graduating class consisted of 42 students. 14 of those students started in kindergarten, 7 started in 1st grade, and 4 started in 2nd grade. That gives us a total of 25 students who were with us from the primary grades all the way through graduation. Our students in 9th grade attend schools such as Hutch Tech, MST, 197, International Prep, Early Middle College, Emerson, Da Vinci, McKinley, South Park. We have also had students go to St. Joe's and some of the other private high schools. Students who have exited our school in this charter term, in 1920, there was 1 that moved out of state, 5 transferred to Buffalo, and 5 moved outside of the Buffalo area. The 5 that transferred to Buffalo were all 1st grade students. Teaching and support staff. Our teaching and support staff comprises of 73% white, 24% African American, and 3% other. Our staffing allocation is classroom teachers, special education teachers, teaching assistants, instructional specialists, and counselors in schools and social workers. And it skipped again. Michael. Our teaching and support staff experience levels from 2018 7 teachers with 1 year experience, 22 teachers with 2 years, 2 teachers with 4 years, and 5 teachers with 5 or more years. Our staff experience levels in 2021 were 2 teachers with 1 year, 5 teachers with 2 years, 16 teachers with 5 to 10 years, and 7 teachers with 11 or more years. Teacher movement since 2019, 9 went to public schools, 2 career changes, 3 others went to charters, and 3 moved out of Buffalo. As I told you, our mission is engaging young minds through projects and partnerships. This slide just shows some of the ways that we engage minds through projects. Some of our students were outside. We build a garden every summer. The top left picture, we open that to families that are welcome to come and pick the vegetables that the students grow in the spring and into the summer. Students in the middle are looking at a microscope. They're using slides. There's a partnership with UV that we will talk about later. Technology is an integral part of our school, and you can see students using that in the top right for art. At the bottom left, we try to think out of the box. We're using Legos, and those students are building word sentences to create a poem. Bottom right, we provide virtual learning experiences for our students who may not have had the background knowledge. So these students were actually in looking at the coral reef, and they were seeing jellyfish. And if I had the next picture, there is a 6-foot jellyfish that comes in off the coral reef, and the kids jump and scream. Again, engaging young minds. We take our students out. To the left, our 8th grade class went to, I got him looking at his little face. Where'd they go? They went to the Underground Railroad. Thank you, my apologies. They went to the Underground Railroad, and to the right, we took them down on the train to explore and more. As you know, we have a green screen room, and these are students using that green screen room. The little boy that's at the mic that you can see is a very, very good rapper, and we have been continuing to develop his skills actually with one-on-one lessons for hopefully a future career for him. Continuing on with engaging young minds, like I said, we have that green room. These are students that actually were using it. We do morning announcements, and they were reading off the teleprompter at the time. Our partnerships stay strong as part of our mission. The ones that appear in front of you have been with our school for quite some time. Our partnerships have continued to expand, adding Playworks, National Grid, and the Sabres. Sarah McCabe will be speaking to you about those partnerships.
So the partnerships that we have currently, as one of them is, they all carry over and support our SEL curriculum.
We can't hear you, Sarah.
No.
I can hear it, Darren.
Oh, okay.
Her too.
Okay, sorry, thank you. Carry over into our SEL curriculum and what we try to instill in our students. One of the programs is with the Sabres, which is part of a SCORES program, which includes SCORES stands for Strength, Community, Opportunity, Respect, and Energy. It is an 8-week program that focuses on not only individual skills, but partnerships and teamwork ability. With that, there was also a workbook the students got to follow along with the lessons and then submit at the end for prizes. With that, several students who did well academically and attendance-wise were taken the opportunity to go down to watch and attend a Sabres practice and also get a tour of the locker room. Afterwards, the Sabres asked several questions, and one of our students got a signed stick and some prizes from the Sabres. UB is also one of our partnerships where with the UB athletes, currently every other week they come into a kindergarten through 6th grade classroom and they read a story to our students, but they, at the same time, they are also being mentors. The students ask questions such as, do you still have to listen to your teacher in college? Do you have to complete your work in college? So that has been a very good exchange with the students. And at the same time, I think our staff and our students are also learning about different sports as well. They talked about track, and all of a sudden the 1st grade class just stood up on Zoom and started running across the screen to show that they wanted to do track and they knew what it was about. So that's been a nice partnership that is continuing to expand. We are also expanding with our alumni association to support some development with our students in our class. With our social emotional, we started Close Gap, which is a daily check-in with the students where they're asked several questions about how their day is going, how they're feeling right at that moment. Based on those answers, it's monitored by the administration, their team, teachers, and support staff, and follow-up is needed. A student can ask right on there, they need to talk to someone today, and by the end of the day, usually before lunch, either a support staff member or the teacher contacts that student directly one-on-one. And that is monitored, and we have data on that for all the students when they check in and how they are feeling to monitor peaks and lows in their days based on how they are. Our social emotional program, we started with hashtag #OneWord2020. Each student and staff member, we asked to think of a word that they want to focus on for that year. At the beginning of 2020, we didn't think the end of 2020 may have a different word. But we posted those all along the hallway going into the cafeteria, so every student and staff member saw those words every day. They can look at their word to see what they maybe wanted to focus on for that day, or they can pick somebody else's word that may be what they needed for that day. So that was a nice little project that we did with the students, and we hope to continue that. We will. In the reflection centers, we had started where the students are taught to how to not only deal with their emotions, but what are they feeling at that time, and what that moment, what it means to feel that way, why they may be feeling that way, and what actions or reactions they may have based on those feelings. And then teaching them the life skill along the way of how to cope with those and how to interact with other, not only peers, but with adults as well based on those emotions. Oh, sorry. As Mrs. Schwab mentioned before, this is part of our sensory floor. So we have a take a break pass for any student. It's similar to a laboratory bathroom pass where they can take a break. And right, the reflection center may not be what they need at that time because they're still in that environment. Our goal is to create various environments for the students to be able to interact or just have that moment to themselves. So the sensory floor was developed in place so the students can take a break, take that pass out in that hallway, go do, there's 2 sensory paths, hop, jump, right? We teach them the rules and the regulations, and right, it's a trust factor to let them out in there. We also have a take a break onto the bulletin boards where they have the opportunity to draw and color and express themselves on that bulletin board, and they know that it's a certain amount of time where they get themselves together and come back. We have the extra gaming room, which we've had for several years, but we thought the other side, not only to the extra gaming to release that energy or stress or frustration, was a meditation room. And this was created and spray painted by a local artist. And in this room, we teach them how to calming room, support. This was actually a partnership with Playworks. And what this is, what the purpose of this was, is to how to deal with one-on-one emotions and overcoming challenges and tasks, such as doing just a simple puzzle, and then working with another classmate to complete that puzzle, to get I love this picture. It shows so much. They're learning how to interact with one another in small groups and partners, and then expand on into completing tasks, whole group, whole classes. And then we integrated multiple classes and all multiple grade levels in order to complete a task and to deal with their social, emotional, how to win, how to lose. The 8th grade students were working on their SEL through the eyes of kindergarten students. They would read books to the students. They would play board games, teaching them how to win and lose, how to take turns, how to read directions, how to understand directions. They assisted with scissors, daily life skills, scissors, tying shoes, zipping coats. And it was actually the 8th graders came back and they did this own reflection on themselves because they were saying, oh, this student's really quiet. I bet you are like that. So they took it to themselves, and the 8th graders went back up into their classroom. This was during their health class, and they pointed out and they tried to pick which kindergarten student they represented them as a kindergartner. So it was a kind of whole flip, like, ooh, who was I as a 4, 5, 6-year-old? And now look at where I have gone as an 8th grader. With these, with the SEL and the components, the specials also have taken over. Especially during remote learning, we felt that specials were an intricate part of our SEL. And it gave, so music, art, theater, library, and physical education were offered live each week to each of our classrooms. So every week they had each of the specials. As well as 2 times a day, our physical education teachers came in and did brain breaks, get those kids a little bit of energy release or refocus that they may need. And together as a whole school, we created these we're hoping to create these lifelong skills of how we could all take a little bit of SEL in our lives. And now I will hand it back over to Mrs. Schwab.
Thanks, Ms. McKay. ECS response to COVID. ECS went fully remote on March 20th, 2020. We are looking to return to limited in-person in this March, 1 year. ECS deployed Chromebooks for each student, 405, provided curriculum materials and supplies within 2 weeks of the closure. We listened to families during COVID. We have now surveyed them 5 times since the last school year, since COVID began. 75% of the time did not feel safe to return to school until just this last survey that we put out a week ago. Families were surveyed for internet access. If they did not have it, we provided hotspots. And families were also surveyed for access to food. We now have a full food. We serve about 5 to 10 families per week through that, and we serve over 3,000 meals per month out of the BPS food distribution site that Ms. Val runs for us. So thank you for your support with that. Family engagement, we used in-person budget lines to pay for school supplies so families did not have to shop or spend money. We operated the food distribution site, like I said, and we held outdoor social distance family events around holiday and the winter holiday. ECS's online program uses Zoom for daily synchronous instruction 4 days a week. 1 day a week, we check in on Wednesdays for deep cleaning of the school. We check in with the kids in the morning, and then the teachers do a morning circle with them, and then they work from home on the asynchronous assignments that the teachers give them for the day. ECS remained faithful to its students' IEPs for remote instruction and related services. Lessons were delivered using Google Classroom and Schoology, and ECS added several applications to support remote learning in math, ELA, science, and social studies. Professional development continued throughout COVID. We have professional learning communities that teachers meet weekly on a scheduled basis. Teachers participated in professional development on ELA strategies to engage students in higher order thinking about literature twice per week. Teachers had access to on-demand technology support as well as parents. Measuring our learning.
Julie, can I interrupt for one moment? Because I want to make sure we get through the the important points of your slide, because I know board members have a host of questions for you. This is an important renewal time, so I really want you to get into any data you have about the improvement in the school and the real meat of the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Online attendance was 95%, and ECS performed a remote assessment in English and math in the spring and fall of 20, and I'm going to turn it over to both Dr. Doyle and Lisa Chomsky to talk to you about the data.
Everyone, I am Lisa Chomsky, and I'm the MTSS coordinator, the multi-tiered system of supports coordinator. I'm going to share some data and information with you that was shared with the review team. This is our visual for our general DDI, data-driven instruction process. So overall, data is collected and then analyzed with teachers and support staff, and ultimately leads to our next steps. So for example, the restructuring of our school to a Tier 2 school for grades 1 through 5 was a direct result of this DDI process. And this DDI process also drives all of the differentiation that happens throughout our building. Here you'll see the internal assessments that are given at ECS, and every single one of these assessments continued throughout COVID from the time we first went out. At the bottom, you'll see the more frequent tests, assessments such as the formative daily assessment, our progress monitoring for interventions, and then at the top are our interim assessments, and what I'm really going to talk about is the iReady diagnostic for ELA and math. So iReady was chosen as our diagnostic due to its extremely high validity and reliability. It has a very high correlation to the New York State assessments in both math and ELA, as you can see from the chart. One way that we at ECS ensured validity, especially remotely, was through our proctoring. So in person, the diagnostic was proctored by teachers, support staff, and myself as the MTSS coordinator in the background, and we did the exact same thing virtually. It was proctored by teachers via Zoom, support staff, and myself in the background as well. We also provided all testing accommodations as mandated for all of our subgroups. And we involved families and students in the process. So letters were sent to families and students in Spanish and English. We had narrated slideshow presentations that were added to our website and sent out via robocall to families in Spanish and English. And there was a teacher to student slideshow presentation that talked about iReady, as well as a Q&A between teachers and families. So what does the data show overall? So from fall 2019 through this past fall 2020, when we gave the iReady diagnostics again, in reading, as you can see, there was an overall increase in the percentage of students at Tier 1. There was also a decrease in the percentage of students in Tier 3. And you will see the same positive trend in math. So from fall 2019 to fall 2020, there was an increase in percentage of students in Tier 1, and there was a decrease in the percentage of students in Tier 3. Through our DDI process that I spoke about before, we knew that math was an area of focus. So we partnered with the University at Buffalo, and I will turn it over to Dr. Doyle to speak to that.
I'm the instructional coordinator for math at Enterprise. Right now you're seeing the data grade-wise for the math interim assessment, and it's showing, again, positive growth in our math program. So that aligns with the iReady results. And this is a direct result of the partnership with UB, and I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. Chomsky.
Thanks, Dr. Doyle. So when we look at our subgroups and the iReady data for the same period of time from fall 2019 to fall 2020, you will see the same positive growth trend as the whole school. So for our students with 504 plans, our English language learners, on the next slide, as well as our students receiving special education services, there is an increase in the percentage of students at Tier 1, and there is a general overall decrease in the percentage of students at Tier 3. And I will turn it back over to Superintendent Schwab.
Thanks, Mrs. Chomsky. I'm just going to click through really fast a few slides. This is family engagement. I told you that we did trunk or treat this year, and this is just a few pictures from that. This is our food pantry where the fridge and the freezer reside. And to the left, we partner with UB. As we said, those are the UB athletes wrapping the gifts from Little Match Girl for our students for December break. To the right is pictures of, we had a holiday light show. Parents and family members could drive through and say hello to us, and that's what you're seeing there. We also had a virtual holiday showcase. Miss Medina was our MC, and all of these pictures, the top left or the top right and the bottom left, are actually kids who sent in virtual songs for the slideshow, and we put them in. The top right, there's 3 different houses doing the exact same song, and they coordinated and put it together. To the bottom right, last year, before we went out on COVID, we did the Nutcracker, and that's what that performance is. Collaboration efforts. I believe that Enterprise Charter School is a representative part of Buffalo Public School and has a close relationship. We are a potential collaboration site for information, programs, and practices in social, emotional, and learning. We know that the new technology standards are coming, and we'd love to collaborate on that. We would be willing to pilot things here, if so. The same with the next generation science standards that are the FAT for 5th grade, teacher development and training, tools for data-driven instruction, classroom curriculum technologies, and I also am remiss not to put in there the education for teacher training. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to continuing being a part of Buffalo Public School.
Thank you very much for that, Superintendent Schwab. I'll turn it over to Mr. Petrucci, and then he can survey the board members for questions.
Thank you, Dr. Brown-Hall. I was just going to ask board members in the, well, I see Larry's raised his hand, but I've been keeping a running tally as to who's in attendance, and I was going to ask if anyone has any questions. Believe it or not, Larry, you were at the top of the list. So let's start with a proud performing arts parent, board member Larry Scott.
President Petrucci, and thank you, Enterprise staff, for your in-depth presentation. I have 3 questions right now, 2 of which pertain to special education. Wondering first, I saw in the data over the past several years, or 3 or 4 years, there seemed to be a pretty dramatic decline in your special education population. Almost, half the amount of students from previous years compared to this, maybe the past school year or current school year. So I'm just wondering if you have any explanation for that significant decrease in students with disabilities, and along with that, if you have any self-contained classrooms for students with severe disabilities, such as a 6-to-1, 8-to-1, 12-1-1, or 15-to-1.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Our students with disabilities has right now is at a hold. I'm going to say we have sent material up to the BPS CSE, who is our LEA for that, and we are waiting for them to go through the CSE process. So that number will actually be larger than what you're seeing right now, but it's been on hold due to the COVID process. As far as students with disability, we are always looking to partner with BPS. At this time, we do not have a self-contained classroom. I would be open to have that conversation. However, I would also ask that BPS look at funding that classroom, not only the teacher, but the related services, along with any materials that would be needed for that classroom, if that were the case.
Any sense though for it seems like just over the past few years there's been a decline in students with disabilities, and just any sense of how come numbers have decreased for students with disabilities over the past few years?
Sure. So if I were to if the students that are up for CSE referral right now, if I were to put those in, we would be within 10% of the district. So our numbers then would be relatively the same to where they were in the past. We did have one cohort when I first got here in 2016-17 that was extremely high in realms of that class specifically, that had a high population of students with IEPs.
Okay. And then my last question has to do with data on suspensions. The data I have from State Ed is not recent, but because their reports, last I checked, only go up to 2017. And I noticed, and Enterprise is not the only school, and as well as some of our Buffalo public schools are ranking up there high for suspension rates. But I noticed 2017, 2016, 2015, Enterprise was up there in the amount of suspensions. Just wondering if you have any current data on the amount of suspensions, as well as students with disabilities that are suspended, and a breakdown on race of students suspended.
Sure. I can't speak to the years you're referring to because I wasn't here. I'd have to go back and look at that data for you. But as I said earlier, in 2019, 2020, I'm not going to count 2021 because we were in remote instruction. However, the slide was that one student exited for out of state, 5 transferred to Buffalo, and 1 moved outside of Buffalo. We did not have any movement back to Buffalo other than those 5 first grade students that I spoke to you about.
But as far as school suspension, students being suspended from school, do you have any data on that?
We didn't have any. We've had 1 suspension over the course of the last year and a half, 2 years because of COVID. We've been on remote learning, and the one student that was, I don't know if this is, the one student that was suspended broke the technology. We have a policy for technology use, and the student broke that. We provided service for that student a lot in lines with the regulations for students with suspensions, and then the sentence was served, and the student came back.
All right. As long as other board members are okay with this request, I'd like to request that suspension data be provided to the Board of Education over, I'd say, at least the past 3 years. Make it 4 years, because as you mentioned, this year and some of last year didn't really count. And a breakdown on students with disabilities, as well as the race of students that were suspended. If that could be submitted at a later date, I would appreciate it.
Additional
And
questions?
That's all from me. Thank you, Mr. Petrucci.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Next up, we have Board Member Terrence Hurd, followed by Board Member Jen McCosey. Mr. Hurd, the floor is yours.
Thank you for a great presentation. You guys provided a lot of information in your report, and a few questions that I would like to pose. First question is, what makes you any different from other charter schools? What do you feel that are your attributes to education compared to other charter schools in Buffalo?
I believe our projects and partnerships and all the slides that I just showed you through all the pictures, those pictures were taken during this charter term renewal while we were in remote instruction. I actually had more, but I stopped them, and I'd be happy to share those with you where we are incorporating the arts along within the classroom. Our kids actually, there's one that if we have some time I will bring up. Right now our middle school is reading Romeo and Juliet, and our special areas, both Mrs. Clay and Ms. Vincent are creating a coffee shop where kids can do their readings and put themselves in a different, just a different place than a classroom to express their feelings in using Romeo and Juliet. And some of them are using that time frame, and some of them are using the current time frame. I think also what makes us unique is not only do we provide students the typical general education that's mandated through New York State, but as you see, we had the green screen, we have the extra gaming room, we actually have a recording studio for kids. We have a space upstairs that when you walk in there, it is set up to look like a college hub intentionally. And so we provide opportunities along with our partners. We partner with UB. They've gone and visited the school. Like we said, we've had athletes in. We had National Grid in. They've done science. They go out. They tour the schools. They've gone to ECC. We partner with Junior Frontiers, the Mohawk Valley, and they take 8 of our students every year, minus COVID, on a historical Black college tour down south for 5 days. And those students experience the college experience, and they get to talk to professors. They get to watch the older students from the Junior Frontiers interact and apply and go through that process so they can see what that will look like for them in future years. I think our staff also is unique. I mean, we are at 24% African American and Hispanic and Latino. So we try to put educators and people of color, light color, in front of our kids. And so they have those models and mentors as well. I could go on if you want.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Bob. That goes into one of my next questions. What percentage are your graduates going into a 4-year program or to a 2-year program, and what types of schools are they going into?
Sure, our building is a K-8, so they move on either to Buffalo Public Schools or they go to private high schools.
Okay, thank you. I had that written. Okay, and just one more question. You said that that your ELL students is about 5%. What type of program do you have for your ELL students, 5%? And how come you don't encompass more compared to the rest of the district? You know, you have a lot more students that's enrolled ELL students.
Sure, thank you for that question, Mr. Hurd. Again, our ELL population is about 5% right now. The services they receive are push-in and pull-out services. We have an ELL teacher that works with them. Their skill set right now that they are working on is vocabulary and writing. Those seem to be areas where the deficits are occurring for them to be able to move out of ELL. Like I said earlier, we are expanding our efforts. We joined Schoolment with all the other charter schools, so we're hoping that will attract more diversity to our school for our subgroups. We're also going to look and again continue to partner with Journey's End and Viva La Casa and International Institute. We also are very much a grassroots school. and our community is really our outreach. It is very much a word of mouth school.
Yeah, you do a lot of advertising though, as you said earlier, and we do see your advertisement in a lot of different areas in the city, so I was hoping that if you're going to reach out to students, maybe you can reach out to some of those families also, probably with Spanish literature or others. Just one more question and I'm done. Do you support a plan for New York State to provide separate funding for aid to programs and programs?
I'm not sure what you're referring to. I'm sorry. Can you rephrase your question?
Aid for charter schools. Would you support a program for New York State to fund charter schools, privately set us on public schools?
I'd have to really see what that entails before I could answer that question.
Okay, thank you.
Questions, Mr. Hurd? Terrence, do you have any other questions?
I believe Ms. McCosey is next because we are running.
No, that's it.
Okay. Yes, Board Member McCosey, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. I have a question based off a response that you had given Board Member Scott around the self-contained classrooms. Being that you've been in business, whether you were there or not, for as long as you have, and you're looking for Buffalo Public Schools to, create funding and resources in order for you to be able to bring a self-contained classroom, I'm wondering have you ever thought of, utilizing other partnerships as well? It seemed, the answer kind of struck me because it seemed you were like relying on us solely in order to make that happen. And I believe, of course, we would have to partner with you to do that, but with all of your other partnerships and the fact that you are, as you have just said, a grassroots school, and we do have such a need for self-contained classrooms through all of our learning communities. What is your, do you have a plan? And if you do, just for the sake of time, can you send it to create funding streams and resources for yourselves to be able to, educate these students and really broaden, the need and the resources for students that have these issues? That I guess, like, what is your other plan if was that just a quick response, or are you looking to, or do you already have plans in place to make this happen for yourselves with Buffalo schools being assisted in what you're trying to do? It just struck me as if it was, and I'm sorry, I had to speak on it, but it was like, if the Buffalo schools fund it, we'll make it happen. And I'm wondering if you had any other ways to make this happen and we assist in that.
Sure, thank you for the question. My original position was special ed. It's where I started, it's my heart. The CSE is what drives that classroom. It is up to the CSE to tell the school what resources, what needs to be done. And then the 611 and the 619 grants drive that funding source for a classroom and for special education. Right now, Enterprise Charter School pays for all special education teachers, pays for all related services. So like I said, I would certainly look to have the conversation, but we would definitely need to have the conversation around supporting those students, and rightfully so. They deserve the best education they can get.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Any other questions, Ms. McCosey? Thank you very much.
Nope.
Next up, we have Dr. Kathy Evans-Brown, followed by Board President Sharon Kottman. Dr. Evans-Brown, the floor is yours.
Okay, hello. Thank you for that thorough presentation. I only have two questions. Well, three actually. I think I might have missed this. How many students do you service?
405.
4 or 5?
400.
Okay, thank you. And so my second question is, do you have a plan to increase diversity in your staffing? I know that everybody's struggling in this area. And if so, what are your strategies?
Sure, we're already at 24%, and that's well above, I think, any school in Western New York at this time.
So you're saying that you reach your cap?
We have never reached our cap, but I'm saying that I think we are certainly at the forefront of putting educators that look like our children in front of them, and that's always been my intention, is to have our students have models. As we look around the entire country, it's not really an enterprise issue, it's an entire country issue at this time as far as education. And I applaud Buffalo for reaching down into your high schools and supporting any student that might be looking at education in the future. And I would open my doors, as I have in the past, for people to come and obtain an education if we can support them in any way. We had a partnership with UB where we had set up, UB was going to come in and do a little group, a small try to support people who are interested in getting their education degree. And the head of that person moved to another job. Also, another avenue that I have is Junior Frontiers of the Mohawk Valley. Dr. Chanel Ben.
Go over the last part.
Excuse me, one moment. Phone number 392-9546. Please mute. Mike, can you mute that line, please? Thank you. Continue, Superintendent Schwab.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Another avenue is Judge Rashid of the Junior Frontiers. They also support us in recruitment efforts for when they go on the Historical Black College Tour. They also are always looking for people who are interested to come to the Buffalo area and work in this environment.
Julie, is that 24% of your teachers or overall staff? What percent of teachers?
24% is teachers, teaching assistants, social workers. If I were to add all people of color, we would have 7 more people that I would add to that 24%.
So 24% is teachers, teacher aides and assistants.
Teachers of the total staff amount are African American. It's the question that the board wants to know. Thank you.
24%.
24% teachers and teaching assistants, correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you for that. And then my last question is, I noticed that you have had growth overall in your reading scores. I applaud you for that. Can you just give us an idea of what happened between 19 and 20? What kind of, I guess, interventions you put in place? Because I'm looking at the chart where from fall 2019 to fall 2020, there was an increase in percentage of students in Tier 1, a plus 37%. And then there was a decrease in percentage of students in Tier 3, which is equivalent to a minus 31%. Can you tell me what strategies or interventions you guys did to get those results?
Sure. Both our ELA and math scores reflect growth for our students. And I'm going to circle back to the special ed question for just a minute. We have an extremely robust MTSS process with our tiers. And one of the reasons that we may not have as many students in special ed right now is because our tiers really work to identify where the gap is in instruction, and we try to close that as quickly as we can. So Lisa and Dr. Doyle, if you could speak to the ELA and the math, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, sure. I can start with the ELA. First, thank you for that question. So last year in 2019, we brought in an outside consultant, Diana Sear, and she is working with all of our ELA teachers around a balanced literacy program, and she specializes in working with diverse populations of students and students who come from from economically disadvantaged situations. So she works very closely with our teachers. It took place throughout last year during COVID over the summer. And she really focuses in on using Bloom's taxonomy and getting students to think rigorously around text, even at a kindergarten level. So that work has been taking place since 2019. So I really attribute a lot of that growth to that because it is differentiated in its own right, and it targets our students right at kindergarten.
So I will speak to the math. I was brought in through UB partnership originally to Enterprise, and that's where you see the math and term scores. And you will see, I was brought in the summer of 2019, and my focus was to increase math scores. Okay, and so if you notice, the math and term assessments 3 through 5th have tremendous growth, and that was our focus group at the time because we were piloting a program, Ms. Schwab and I, and so through the UB program. At the same time I was there, I also, through assessments, formative and summative assessments, we have fine-tuned those to more align with our New York State assessment test being given to students. And the focus was on word problems and problem-solving initiatives for our students to be able to learn those skills, because those are going to take them into life, past school, into college and so forth. So that was our focus for the math. And that has gone on to continue through COVID. Another thing we did with the math was I worked very closely with my math teachers and to help them to teach different strategies and skills. I have introduced several strategies that we use on a daily basis, the CRA method, numberless word problems, number talks, because we want to encourage students to talk in math class instead of just listen to the talking head at the front of the room. We don't do that. We have a lot of engagement. So those were changes that we brought on here from when I started, and now I'm an employee. I stayed on because I believe in Enterprise. And so I continue my work with the math program, and I plan on it. So.
Something else I just want to add, if it's okay. I think also this past, since 2019, we did a lot of curriculum review and auditing and reformatting and replanning, and that was in cooperation with the University at Buffalo around our math program, as well as Diana Sear around our ELA program. So our curriculum is constantly being reevaluated using the data through the MTSS system. And COVID has actually given us a really unique opportunity because we utilize those Wednesday asynchronous days as times to do even deeper data dives. We've always been a data-driven school, but we are really utilizing those Wednesdays, and we have been since we first went out for COVID. So I think all of that combined also shows you a lot of the growth that you saw.
Well, another thing we've done is we've really focused on our gap instruction for reading and for math. And we are focusing on fluency and reading, phonics. So We are expecting to have even higher scores in the future because students get 40 minutes of instruction time directly related to fluency and phonics.
Dr. Doyle and Lisa, can you possibly send us the data that you're referring to? I know you're discussing increases and certain data points, and it doesn't seem like we have those data points. So if you can send whatever data you have regarding some of the things you're discussing, we greatly appreciate that also.
Yes, thank you so much.
Questions, Dr. Evans-Brown? No? Okay.
No, that's all I had. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next up, we have Board President Sharon Belton-Cotman. President Cotman, do you have any questions? The floor is yours.
Yes, I do. Thank you very much for your presentation. I have to share with you that as I look at this, this school has been in existence since 2003, and I have probably data that most of you don't have because I keep records. And as I'm looking at this, there has been a consistent struggle with meeting basic proficiency in math. So I'm glad to see that you've done some changes, but meanwhile, back at the ranch, recently in a conversation with the Commissioner of Education, Interim at that point, in regards to the concerns we had about charter schools, this particular school as well as another charter school came up, and we literally were, our hands were slapped because based on the performance record, charter schools are supposed to be innovative. They're supposed to be, in essence, able to outperform public schools or Buffalo public schools in most respects. And this has not been the case with Enterprise. And I guess I spent a lot of time this past week because this is a very serious issue here. We have to make a decision whether we make a recommendation and et cetera. And then I ran into your factual error report dated November the 21st of 2018, which I had a major problem because I've never seen a factual error report done like this. Normally factual error reports deal just with facts, not with people's opinion. And so I didn't understand what's going on. It was almost as if the Buffalo Public School staff made an assessment and you came back and said, that's not the actual facts. Although it was their opinion, okay, that's not the actual facts. Our facts say this. And so I was really pushed back by that. I've never seen anything like this from any charter school in the past. And that concerned me. But I do want to get into a couple of questions. I want to start with your board leader, president, or whatever. I want to know how long, what is the longevity of your board members? How long have most of your board members been with you? Because I'm trying to paint a picture here, and I'm trying to see, and I'm going somewhere with this, so I want to be clear. I want to know, what is the longevity of your board members? What does it look like? How many and how long?
Members on the board right now.
How many?
7 members.
7, okay.
I believe that we have 3 that have served less than 1 term, which is a 3-year term, 4 that have been there for multiple terms. I have been here for about a little over 5 years, and I think I am the 2nd longest tenured member on the board. So most people are 6 years, or actually all people I think are 6 years or less on the board.
6 years or less, okay. Now let's talk about your administration, because in the reports that I pulled, and I have reports that go back to 2013, so I'll tell you how long I've been doing this. And in each report, it references that there was a recent turnover in administration. Okay, that's why we saw the lull or whatever that in each one of these. What's going on with your current leadership? Because previously, when we met not too long ago, it appears that from what I'm seeing here, that there's also, and now that Julie Schwab is the superintendent, it appears that once again, there's been a change in leadership. And it seems to be a pattern. Every 2 years with this organization or less, people are moving. you're moving, and the children are impacted obviously by this. And it recently was brought, I was made aware that there were concerns. So when you talk about you've got 24% African Americans who are on your staff, I'd like to know how many teachers that is. I really want to know how many teachers that is. I can tell you that Buffalo's numbers basically are made up of our African American numbers. I'll be honest to disclose it. The largest percentage of our African American people that are in the classrooms are teacher aides. Okay, that's a large percentage in our district, our teacher assistants and teacher aides. So I'm trying to find out actually how many teachers are in your classroom, because normally in these buildings, often in Buffalo Public Schools as well, the African Americans who are considered the support staff also include additional people who are also on the maintenance team as well. So I'm just curious to know, how many actual teachers do you have? If you don't have it now, you can send it to us, Julie. If you don't have it now, you can send it. Okay, so the other thing that I also noted is that this is a CSI school, and we know all about CSI schools in Buffalo. And the decision to make.
We are not a CSI school. We are in good standing.
It's something that I read from the state in here, that there was a CSI report on here, and that Westminster is a TSI school. And so I'll be happy to find it if I have to go back through this. But I'm told that you are, and I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but this is what I was told, that I read this somewhere in here, that this school would be considered a CSI school if it was a Buffalo public school. So maybe I'm wrong. Dr. Chisholm, am I incorrect in that? I'll stand corrected if I am.
Charter schools are schools in good standing under the new ESSA accountability status, prior to which that would have been the status. But as of right now, they're both good standing under the ESSA.
Okay, well, that's the issue. I've had this conversation with the state. You're considered good standing, but your proficiency rates are low. And so that's the conversation that the new commissioner is going to have to correct. Because if you're going to have a school that's in good standings, that says to the parents that the school is in good standing. And it doesn't say that the district, that the school is being reviewed and or is under review. And your school, along with Westminster, are under review by the state because they feel that those two schools have been in existence long enough to have achieved certain plateaus, and they have not. Okay, and so that's why we're having this conversation. We understand the impact of COVID, and we're not downplaying that at all. But I do think that you're living maybe in a bubble or something if you don't feel that after being in existence for, 17 years, that we're looking at these type of ratios and a major concern. I put your schools, I went all the way back to 2013 in my notes so that I can have a clear picture. So I just want you to understand, I believe you're doing great work. I believe that you also have the parents feeling that you're doing great work. But what we were required to do when our schools went under review from the state, we were required to send letters out to each parent and inform them that our school is being monitored by the state because we did not reach certain proficiency levels. And this is the difference between being in the public school arena, and being in the charter school arena. That, I'm not sure if you guys ever have been required to do such a thing. But I wanted to point those things out because this is serious stuff that's going on here. Also listed in here was a recommendation about RFPs that because they're public dollar monies that are coming through, that there should be an RFP process that's in place. My understanding is that it's done selectively, okay? And that is a concern because it is public dollars being managed by a private institution. And if you're going to have public dollars, there should be a process where RFPs, everyone gets a chance to participate in that process. And that's what I'm just saying. Now, I have a couple of concerns because in moving forward, we've got to decide what we're going to do. I need to know if your board would be receptive to having a representative from the Buffalo School District attend, be a part and attend your meetings. And not necessarily a voting member, but at least someone who can report back what's going on to the district directly as to what's going on in the board meetings. That's a question you don't have to answer now because it's something that you would need to talk to your board, but it has to be answered before the decision goes back to the state on what we need to do moving forward as far as I'm concerned for our school district. Because I'll be honest with you, I was on the board in 2015 when we were sued by Enterprise. So excuse me, I didn't think that we had the authority to even have input or anything associated with Empire. And as a result, it was clearly explained to me, I think it was in September, that not only are you responsible for this school, we're going to hold you accountable for this school by the New York State Department of Ed. And that was a shock to me. And when I came back and I shared it to the board, because prior to that, no one had ever thought that we even had a say other than at the time of hearings on that. So I just want to be clear. We are being held accountable for 2 charter schools that for the most part we have had little input in, but yet the state is saying you can't point fingers at other charter schools if you're not handling your business charter schools that you currently are are under your umbrella. And so it wasn't a great meeting, and I'm sorry we're going over time with this, but we need to be clear that we need to be in a position moving forward that we have some sort of an idea on what's going on if these charter schools are to remain open moving forward with what's going on the board, on the governance level, as well as what's going on in a more intense way inside the schools. Because I can't be accountable to the Commissioner of Education without making sure that I am accountable. So in other words, if she's holding me accountable, then I'm gonna hold other people accountable. That's how I operate, and I'm consistent with that. So I need to be clear with that. So you need to let us know as soon as possible, because I'm not comfortable with sending a decision back to the state without having an answer associated with that, especially in moving forward. And so for the most part, I want to commend you for the work you did. My concern is that when you have a school that is in greater need as your school is, as far as getting its proficiency rates up, that you did not open surprises me, because you had such a small population. And I hope it doesn't, I hope it works out for you. But I am concerned because one of the criticisms that Buffalo Public School has received is that we did not open early enough, and we are handling or juggling upwards of 34,000 students or 33,000 students in our hands. And so for you to have 405 students and not open up for a year, that's a major concern for me as looking at it from the fact that most of the schools did open up. Okay, so I just want to say, I'm not trying to be difficult, but I need for you guys to understand that we are literally being held accountable now for this charter school as never before, and we have to address issues as a board with that. Okay, if you want to comment on anything I said, please do. Thank you. If not, it's okay. You don't have to. Thank you.
Thomas,
President,
you raised your hand in response.
President Kaplan, I was just going to respond that we certainly welcome any participation by Buffalo Public School or their representatives. I mean, our meetings are open to the public. They're noticed and anybody is able to attend. If we want to formalize that through an observer role or even a voting role, we're not opposed to that. We're happy to have whatever voices we can have to make the correct decisions on behalf of the school. we value the relationship that we have with Buffalo. I thought that the process, I recognize that it was difficult to go through because of the pandemic here, but I think that your team, worked well with our team to try to get the information so that you would be able to be making informed decisions throughout our renewal term, not just at the time that we're reviewing the next application. To the extent that we failed on being able to share information in a way that would allow you to monitor it on a more current basis, I pledge all of my efforts to make sure that you have whatever information that you need to make informed decisions as our authorizer, just like we look to have as much information that we could have as a board to make the best decisions on behalf of our school.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. That takes some weight off of me sitting in front of the commissioner in regards to your school to know that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. S., do you have a comment that you would like to make?
Yeah, I would like to clarify a couple comments that President Belton-Cottman made. One is that we haven't had a leadership change since 2016. So I want to clarify that. So I wasn't sure what you're referring to by every 2 years having a new leader. Julie Schwab was part of
I don't know what you define as a leader. I define as a leader the person who is over the students, the person who is working in the, so when I'm referring to a leader, I'm talking about the principal or who, I don't know what your titles are, but what I saw in this report is in, if I remember right, if Julie's been there since 2016, okay, then she
Correct.
has been the, but she was not the, who, you had someone.
Headmaster.
Yeah, headmaster, that's what your term is. I'm not sure what your term is, but that's who I'm talking about. Someone who is in the day-to-day, and I don't know how this is ran, but I'm talking about a leader of the building who the kids would identify probably as, in our school, would be the principal of the building. That's what I'm talking about. There have been, are you saying there have been none since then? Since Julie's been there, there's been no change? Is that what you're saying?
In terms of administration, yes, there has, but Julie's the leader.
That's what I'm talking about. Let's be clear.
So Julie's the leader of the school, though.
And what is your title? I'm sorry.
I'm the vice board chair.
Okay, all right, thank you. So Julie is the leader of the school, but there has been head changes in your schools over the past couple of years.
There was
right?
a principal change this year. Okay. That's correct.
Okay, all right. So that's critical too, that you're in this period of time and that happened as well. Okay.
And again, I would welcome any executive session that we could clear up the exactitudes of why that change was made. I think that needs to be said. And that also refers to our RFP process and why we made the decision we did to expeditiously seek legal counsel due to some issues that we had. So we do have an RFP process. In that matter, we chose to expeditiously get somebody into a situation because we were handling a personnel complaint.
Right. And did you use that process under that? Did you go through the RFP process under that? Were you selected?
When you have that level of concern that we were dealing with, and it was affecting students, we chose to move quicker than an RFP process would allow. But typically we do use that, just so we're clear.
Who is the current principal of the school?
At this time, because we are in COVID, the principal role has always been divided. I have always been hands-on with the students. They know who I am. They know my name. They know I'm in the classroom. I greet them every morning. So my role, because of my title, does not necessarily facilitate the fact that I don't work directly with the teachers and the students and the families. Right now, because we are in COVID, we have not hired a principal.
Okay. Thank you.
Mrs. Belton-Cottman, President Belton-Cottman, to your response to not opening the building, we surveyed our parents 5 times since June. And we were driven by their decisions. And that is why at this time, we are looking to open at the end of March. That conversation has already started with the parents and with the transportation department.
I think, but you are the only charter that did not open in Buffalo, is that right?
I followed the guidelines.
No, I
of what.
understand. Yeah, I understand you did what you felt was best. I believe you're going to always do that. That much I believe you will do that. From talking to you and in relating to you, I believe that. Okay.
Any other questions, President Belton-Cottman?
No, sir. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Honored proud daughter of an honored World War II veteran and Central Park District Representative Paulette Woods. Ms. Woods, do you have any questions? I don't see Paulette. I'm sorry. I just have a few
questions.
Oh, thank you, Paulette. I just have a few quick ones. Your board, is your board volunteer or paid?
Volunteer.
Thank you very much. Are you guys part of a chain type of charter school, or are you guys independent?
We are independent.
Thank you very much. Do you guys have any policy regarding the percentage of your dollars going to instruction?
We do not have a formal policy on that, but obviously, given our budget size here, the lion's share of it does go towards instruction.
Okay, thank you. And this is a related question. The reason I've asked is that oftentimes we found that many of our charter schools would have these massive reserves. The reserves were more than a year of their operational budgets. Sometimes they were for good reasons. They wanted to build a gym, they wanted to purchase a building, whatever it may be. But do you guys have a policy about reserves and how much money you have in reserves, or do you have a large reserve that you're waiting for something for a particular project or something along those lines?
Our financial reserve is significant due to the structure of our bond financing when we acquired the building and put the addition on it a number of years ago. December of 2020 was the first time that the window opened that we would be able to redeem a portion of those or all of those bonds without penalty. And we are poised to do that when we get clarity on the COVID situation and as well as the renewal term. So we would expect in 2021 that a significant portion of our reserve will be used to pay down debt, which will free up additional cash flow from not paying interest expense to be able to use into our classrooms. Right now, our interest expense is approximately $500,000 a year in interest expense.
Wow, that's a large number. Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate the answer. At this point, I have no other questions. I will turn it back over either to Ms. Bullock or Dr. Chisholm, and then we can conclude from there. But Dr. Chisholm or Ms. Bullock?
Trucci, thank you. Colleagues, I want to bid you farewell and good evening. Thank you for a rigorous meeting. We have all of the questions accounted for, as well as the ask of ECS. And Julie, maybe Lorinda and I can touch base with you tomorrow morning on some of the asks and figure out a way to get the information to our board quickly. We will work that out, Mr. Petrucci and Dr. Brown Hall. And so, again, colleagues, thank you for your time this evening. And we look forward to partnering with you all to serve our children.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bullock, Dr. Chisholm, board members, Enterprise. Thank you very much. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Darren, am I calling in for the next meeting?
Yes.
Or am I, okay.
Are you presenting?
No.
Please call in. Thank you.